Hi, Steve here. Just wanted to take a few moments this evening, Sunday, early June, and I wanted to reflect on some comments made by EPA Administrator Lee Zeldin. And I think it's one of those sets of comments that we ought to talk about because it's easily misunderstood and misrepresented. So basically what the administrator said was that EPA is not going to set national guidelines or regulations for emissions, air or water emissions from artificial intelligence data centers in different parts of the country. He said he would never presume in his position that he knows better than the local entities, whether that be the local population or the local regulators, but what's safe or not safe, what's required or not required in their local community, that they ought to decide those things, and setting national standards for emissions from those plants is something that he just won't do at EPA, that it makes no sense, that every place is different and it should be up to the locals. Now, it's one of those things that you hear a lot. It's argued a lot. It's part of why states were given so much leeway in setting standards and requirements in the Clean Water Act. But it's also one of those things that's misinterpreted, or I think misrepresented and misused, and this may or may not be one of those situations. You see, I think when it's emissions of air contaminants or water contaminants that we know a fair amount about, and we know what levels produce harm. Those levels are often set regardless of local conditions. Cancer is cancer, and the levels that cause it don't change in different parts of the country. So setting a national standard for some compounds makes perfect sense, even if locals may politically not want it. Scientifically and health-wise, it makes a lot of sense to set standards. Same is true for water. There are things in water that will be harmful, and when we have the data to show what those levels are, it's often regardless of what local conditions are. They just don't change that much locally. There are other things that may change a lot. For example, fish communities vary across the country, so setting any standards based on what a fish community looks like wouldn't make sense, because they're going to vary everywhere. And same may be true for some nutrients that are in water. There are some of the chemicals, such as PFAS, the forever chemicals. Makes absolutely no sense to leave it up to local entities and have different levels. So whenever you see kind of political appointees make broad blanket statements kind of wrapped in states' rights, which I believe in completely, make sure that it's not a way of just passing the buck and hoping that the states won't do the right thing, and putting the burden on the states rather than on the federal government, where in some cases it belongs. So I didn't want to spend a whole lot of time on that one, but want you to think about it. When it's appropriate, national standards make a lot of sense when we know levels of the substance that actually cause harm to people and the environment. When we don't, and the levels can vary regionally, then it makes sense. But let's keep our eye on that, because it makes a whole lot of difference in the quality of water and how safe people are all over the country of ours. So I hope you have a good week coming up, and appreciate your time and paying attention to these issues. Take care.